Started. Beginning soon. I didn't put up my beginning.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
You take the good, you take the bad, you take them all, and there you have the facts of life. The facts of life.
I don't think it means what you...
All right, well, here we go. Okay, I have two things I want to talk about, and then there's a bonus thing. And I'll give you a big spoiler on the bonus thing. It's about the alt-right. The alt-right, whether or not I use the term correctly, total separate issue. All right, first of all, we're going to talk about politics. First of all, Netanyahu, okay. I just prefer to go into things assuming you already have your own exposure, and if you didn't, of course, you could search it or whatever. And then I'm wondering if I should explain more, but let's just say, so Netanyahu, this is for people that are familiar with the story, this one. Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, did this thing about, oh, you know, the Iranians lied. So what's bugging me about this is the difference between what he claimed and what he said and how people are reacting. Even on the news, but even more diluted like in the YouTube world or the vlogging, all the blogging world. Where as if, well, here's an even better example. The White House had released this thing that they had to correct saying Iran has a nuclear program, and they had to change it to Iran had a nuclear program. Because what Netanyahu claimed is that Iran had a nuclear program. Right now, they had said, no, we don't really have a nuclear program. But when we made the agreement with them, and all these years it's been an issue, we knew they had a nuclear program. And at one point, there was this amazing hack that job that was done by the U.S. or the U.S. and the British or something like this. Kind of took credit for it, sort of on the Whisper Network down low. But like, I forget if it was a TED Talk or whatever, but I saw some in the tech world people describing how this amazing hack was done that ruined the Iranian centrifuges. Just ran, got a program in there that ran them so they broke, is the story. Anyway, we know they had nuclear weapons, and that's really all Netanyahu claimed. He might also have been claiming that they saved their data from that program. I would expect them to save the data, but the main thing is like, it's similar to how people say, the conservatives, but even liberals somehow believe this sometimes, you know, we paid them these billions of dollars. No, the Shah had the Iranian government. The Iranian government had money, or maybe it was even the Shah's money, in American accounts. There was a court case back when Reagan was around, and it got frozen, and it's been sitting there collecting interest or whatever. So we let them have that money back as part of the agreement. And then that's reported differently, like it was American taxpayer money. No, it was frozen money that was Iranian money to begin with that we had held. And in this case, though, it's Netanyahu who makes the claim that, hey, they lied, they did have a nuclear program, which we already knew, as if to imply to the people who specifically don't bother to get the whole story, right? They don't even want the whole story. They just want to go off on whatever little thing they can get, that because we could be offended, hey, it turns out they had lied. Before we made this deal, they did have a nuclear program that they subsequently halted. You know what I mean? It's like, we knew they had one. We want them to halt it. They did. And he claims, hey, you know what? They had one way back then when they said before the deal, they said they didn't have a nuclear program, but it turns out we could prove they did. Well, first of all, you should react, I guess, prove it. But zeroth of all, you should realize, yeah, no shit. That's why we made an agreement with them and released all that huge amount of money, was for them to stop the program we knew that they did have. And nobody's saying that they haven't stopped it. Oh, but they have the information to continue. Yeah, they have international scientific journals, too, to help them do that. It's not like it's secret knowledge how to build nuclear plants or devices. We're the ones that built the nuclear plants over there when the Shah was there. It's not a secret thing. It's all public how that shit works. It's just expensive to do it without people dying of radiation poisoning and whatnot. And to get it all working requires, good engineering. And good engineering is expensive, especially the first time you figure out how to do it well. So this is the kind of thing that bugs me, where it's like, can't we all just use the honest facts? Another example is back when Sarah Palin in Alaska was getting nailed for this pork thing of a bridge to nowhere. And I'm like, a bridge to nowhere, that doesn't even make sense. Nobody is building a bridge to nowhere. Now, there are some follies like that in American history, but it's just like, no, generally not. I looked that up. It's not a bridge to nowhere. It's a bridge to an island with an airport on it that, brings in something like 250,000 people a year to a place with 5,000 or 10,000 people or even less or whatever it was. You can look it up yourself. And it was going to help them develop the area and connect the mainland, Alaska, to this island where the airport was. Might not be a good way to spend money, but it's not to nowhere. It's kind of like people say, there is no evidence, or Diamond and Silk say, we didn't get paid at all. Well, they didn't get paid much, at least that we know of yet. $1,200, but that's not zero. Your son and campaign manager and son-in-law meeting with a Russian informant about dirt on Hillary is not zero evidence. You could say, hey, it doesn't amount to enough that it was a problem, but you can't say there's nothing, it's come up with nothing when there is something. So people just get these things wrong, and they play tricks with time, like, hey, they had a nuclear program after all. The one we made a deal with them to stop, that they allowed us to come and inspect, and international agencies to come and inspect, and they have stopped. Yeah, but they didn't quite admit that they had it in the first place, but they just agreed to stop. Well, guess what? They had it. Okay, that could be suspicious. You could say, look, that's not a trustworthy thing. It should have come clean. They were supposed to come clean. We already knew that, though, right? And the important part is, did they stop? Right? Because they sort of, what's the opposite of explicit? They implicitly admitted that they had that problem. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is North Korea. Now, Trump et al. Now, of course, I think, is it president or prime minister? For some reason, I think it's president, but of South Korea, Moon, I credit him. This could not be happening if there was a right-wing or conservative government at the moment like there has been in the recent past in Korea. I'm perfectly willing to give credit to Trump. As a matter of fact, he could get the Peace Prize if it all gets pulled off. I don't really care. They gave it to Obama. He didn't deserve it. They gave it to Yasser Arafat for something that was just one little sign of peace that he did in a life of, belligerence. It would be worth it if we had peace on the Korean Peninsula. However, it's certainly not automatic. For one, they've been wanting to meet with the American president. They've already gotten more acknowledgement from an American president. People like John Bolton, I don't think he's probably that happy unless they're wanting to play some long con, like make a deal with the North Koreans where they say they'll denuclearize and yada, yada, yada. Then say they haven't done it, and then use it as an excuse to invade then. Now, why would they do that? Well, if I was North Korea, I'd be a little worried because, look, Trump wants to break the agreement with Iran. That's what it looks like. John Bolton and bomb, Iran. John McCain, attitude, and he's supposedly the regular old-fashioned, okay kind of. I see there's some comments. I'll look at them in a second. You can see how mainstream it is, actually, to attack Iran, the idea. The desire, let's say. So, if you can revoke an agreement with Iran, why should North Korea think that, if they actually do the agreement, give up their nukes, and then somebody's going to go, oh my God, they did have a nuke program. It was even worse than we thought. They were planning, look, here's a plan to blow up LA. So I think, this is a balance. If he wants to get the Peace Prize, that's one thing. If he wants to actually get peace in North Korea, these things are balanced. You can't just go fucking over agreements. Remember, America made that agreement. The president is supposed to be able to make agreements. Yeah, a next president can do shit with that and break those agreements, just like a person, can break agreements, but change their mind, mature, whatever, come to a different decision. But if you do that, there's ramifications, and that's the whole point of having a fair diplomacy. You sort of have to treat everyone fair, and a lot of people are smart enough to realize, look, how you treat the person that's hardest to treat fairly, that sort of says, that's why like people say, you could tell the character of a person by if they're cruel to animals or not. It's like, well, how you treat a helpless person, how you treat somebody without social support against mistreating them, how how you would treat your slaves back in a slave society. That would tell what kind of person you are, because that's where you're unrestrained. It's like how you behave in Westworld is who you really are. All right. The third thing is this bonus thing. So I continue to watch the alt-right. I don't really care. I've decided anybody can try to explain what the alt-right is. You guys don't respect distinctions among social justice warriors or progressives or liberals or feminists. They're all the same. And if we go, no, people are different, we don't believe that, and they believe, then you go, oh, haha, let's make a meme out of, they're not all like that. Well, okay. From liberal people who have these reactionary positions like Thunderfoot and Scott Adams and on, all the way to the openly Nazis, they're all right, as far as I'm concerned. It's an alternate to what has been the traditional right over the last 60, 50, 150 years in conservative and liberal parties, right? So, in conservative parties in this case. Okay, so anyway, this shitstorm, oh, it's great. So, Richard Spencer, and, okay, so there's this, this is one, unlike the first one, where you hopefully don't know who these people are. So there's this guy, Andy Worski, and he's part of sort of this thing called Internet Blood Sports. I don't know if he started it, someone else. There's a whole bunch of shitlords that kind of like this idea, Internet Blood Sports. And the funny thing is, I've seen people in the comments, and I didn't know what they were talking about, because they kept talking about the irritable bowel syndrome community, the IBS community, but it was irritable bowel syndrome. No, it's Internet Blood Sports. So but I think they're kind of the irritable bowel syndrome metaphorical. Nothing against people that are suffering with that as a real thing. So anyway, and they were jumping all over Baked Alaska dude, who was one of the guys who was at the, who did some of the live streaming that ended up being court evidence and stuff at the Charlottesville thing, right? So he's a BuzzFeed guy that became an alt-right guy and whatever. And he moved to LA and had a falling out with everybody else, and it was kind of triggered by the fact that he had a pretty girl that they didn't like on at the same time that he was like telling people that it was toxic and unacceptable for his chatters to be saying kill the niggers and kill the Jews. And then that became a big thing, because like Adam Worski and his crew, and he has a sidekick JF, I'll mention them in a minute, who's a French Nazi I had mentioned the other day, and a bunch of other people, this Thomas Ellington, right, wing kind of guy. Well, you can't do that, you sound like a social justice warrior. And then and this guy Medicare or whatever, who's some sort of hero to a lot of these and 4chan types and stuff, and these are people with tens of thousands of views. Some of them, there's a gradient into the hundreds of thousands. And Gamergate wise, I thought there is a lot of this is coming from gaming culture and people that have gotten big on Twitch and stuff. So that's interesting. But anyway, they were all over this Baked Alaska guy for doing that. It's like, oh, these kind of people are fine to grow your channel. Now you want to clean up house and see. I just think that's so terrible, and you should have more respect to people. Don't undermine the kill other ethnicities, people. But anyway, since then, Andy Worski, show it is, and his sidekick JF, who of course they're all alphas, so there's all this drama in that. They had, okay, so this story involves Richard Spencer, who is the punch Nazi, the guy that got punched in the face, and we all were wondering, is it okay to punch a Nazi for a while? And then there's the Cantwell guy, who's the crying Nazi, who went to jail, and since has somehow gotten free from jail and admitted that he's an FBI informant now, but somehow he tried to twist that just to undermine the guys that are hurting the movement. He's still total anti-Semite and whatnot. And then there's this guy JF, who knows he is, but he was the sidekick on Andy Worski. And so Cantwell came on, and Worski was a little bit like, what? You know, if you had an ethno-state and a Jew snuck in, you'd kill him, and he called that murder and stuff. So JF did his own stream. It's total drama. It's a fun half. And so JF was accusing Worski of defamation of Cantwell for being upset and, you know, maybe reacting to killing other races that invade your hypothetical land as a kind of a murder. It is not counting as murder, that because it would be a crime in that case. Like if a state does that, it's a crime against humanity. But, and then he semi-apologized about it, but then JF went and made his own stream, and so there was the alpha male, beta male type of a thing, and who's the boss, and I'm the boss kind of stuff, and so they broke up and they did it all on live streams. And so that's great that by having Cantwell on, see these divisions, but it's all almost, it hasn't, the breakups haven't gone to the point of evaporation, but the fracturing is so extreme. I mean, they're already divided to the point where they can't join together to get anything done, which is good because they all have terrible ideas. So you got your Richard Spencer, who is the punch Nazi. You got Cantwell as the crying Nazi. JF is the French Nazi, and this Andy Worski guy is the useful idiot Nazi. And JF is now doing his own stream, trying to segue because he quit on Worski. Worski was going to let him stay. Worski just wanted to give him a talking to about who was really in control. And Worski's actually, a lot of these guys are really, the way they say things to each other, you can tell they're just trying to say it to be nice or be the bro thing, but they're all actually different. Like Worski's sort of an idiot and doesn't realize that he's promoting, like with Cantwell and whatnot, people that want a violent solution in their little fantasy dreams. And, you know, JF now is on his own, and he had Richard Spencer on and Nick Fuentes, who is the boy Nazi. And, you know, I decided not to bother saving their video because I don't really want to get into that, but it's just not worth my time. I mean, I do want to get into it in a way, and yet I just realized it's not worth my time. It's not that it's not worth my time, but I just realized that I would not keep putting in the time that it would take to like get a video and show. But, you know, Spencer's pretty clear on there. He was saying, you know, we need to destroy the Muslims. And, oh, we need to have a movement that makes the Muslims look liberal. I mean, and I've seen him do it before. I mean, Spencer, and this is the punched in the face Nazi. He, you know, he sneaks his way into it of just like, hey, you know, we are going to have to be violent. Like he's some clever genius fomenting the memes of a violent revolution. Yeah, good luck. Do it now, you know. And, you know, Nick Fuentes, Boy Nazi was like, you know, we're the future. All we have to do is sit tight, hold in there. We're obviously the future. Yeah, you're right. Your racist nationalism, that was never part of the past. Therefore, its arrival must be part of... No, what's going on, you motherfuckers, is your little star of racism and nationalism is collapsing. And when that happens, it heats up. And yeah, it could explode. But, you know, fuck you guys. There's not going to be a victory for you, even though you could make it really bad for everybody else. Because, like, yeah, I've been thinking about demographic reality and whites in America. As far as I know, every sector of whites, white women, you know, white men, white college age, you know, the majority, not a very bigger majority, but more than half, you know, supported Trump. And that's disgusting. And I'm saddened by that. And they're stupid. And by making their little movement hotter and hotter, all they're going to do is after they burn themselves out and take themselves out of the equation, they're going to ruin the reputation of the almost half of white people that are like, we don't want to play that game, you know. And I think that's pretty clear that that's part of what they want to do, because, you know, they're always talking that way, not just recently, but I mean over through history, of ways the pro-race war people of forcing, you know, the abstainers into the battle. And anyway, that's not going to work. But it does make me realize that there's a real problem with this demographic. I mean, why are they thinking this way? And it has to have something to do with our relationship connections to the people that are feeling it really intensely. You know, for every Richard Spencer, there's a whole family of people who unfortunately have Richard Spencer in their family. And that pressure links into their sensitivities and whatever. And so you still have this movement. And when it collapses and finally does its final explosion, you know, how big can it be? And it can't be too big. You could just look at the demographics of the world and where population is growing and steady and all the rest. And it's pretty clearly in the interest of so-called white people to just like drop the whole race thing and, hey, we're over it, everybody, before you notice that there's, you know, 3 billion people in Asia that aren't white. Anyway, yeah, the bonus thing doesn't have to have a conclusion. So let's see, how does this work?
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
This is comments. Okay, well, the Truth Quest is in here, so it looks like all your comments, Truth Quest. Let me see. Truth Quest 123 says, first of all, we have no right to be telling anyone shit. We are the biggest genocider in the world, and we have 7,800 of them. Well, you don't need a right to tell anyone something in order to tell them it. It could be in your best interest. It's kind of like if you run over a guy's poodle and you admit you're in the wrong, and so he wants to kill your dog. Do you just, you've got to let him? You have no right to say don't do that. Yeah, you don't have a right to say don't do that, except for the dog has a right to still live. So either way, you're going to defend it. That is the real point here. Israel and Saudis are the ones that need regime change. I totally agree, especially the Saudis. Also, Israel, we have to change the way we interact and support. I think we should keep a good relationship where we have a good relationship, but it should change. The Saudis, it's like, I don't see them changing, and I think we should just basically cut them off. And if we have to do it slow, fine, but if instead of, you know, letting the Saudis go on 9/11, which they obviously funded and drove and even supervised to a certain degree, then, you know, so be it if it takes 40 or 50 years. We should have been working on other types and sources of energy. We could have been burning all this methane or whatever. They're fracking and stuff. If we're going to do that, we could have done that. But obviously, I think we should get on nuclear and use modern electrical motors. And we can basically, we don't need the Saudi oil. But a lot of Americans make money from getting the oil from elsewhere. So that's the problem there more than anything else. Not a technical problem, I don't think. Russia has nothing to do with anything. Well, that's not true. Russia has to do with the geopolitics. The Zionist Jews own USA. Oh, well, good. That must be why there's so many good Chinese restaurants. This is the real problem. Oh, I don't think that's a problem at all. That's great news. Really? What the fuck is the matter with you people? Well, I think it's closed-minded, racist fucktards is a big part of the problem, but not the whole thing. You seem like a Hillary voter. That's really sad. Oh, is it a disgrace too? Oh, am I the fake news? Whatever. I was disliking, I don't know how old you are, but I've disliked the Clintons since the 90s when they came on the scene. So, you seem like a Hillary voter. Yeah, compared to Trump, fuck yeah, I'd vote for John Gotti compared to Trump, even though they had the same lawyer. Roy Cohn. You're one of the very few smart Americans, and you seem to be just as much of a Kool-Aid drinker as the worst of them. I'm not drinking Kool-Aid. This is my ideas. I do not think this right-wing reactionaryism is going to take us into a good place, because we had that for thousands of years, and it was kings and queens and bullshit. So, anyway, thanks for the comments anyway, but of course, if you're going to differ with me, then you have to be proven wrong. Okay.
I have come here.
Okay. That's that. So smooth.